Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is episode 50 of High Street Sports. My name is Chris. This is John Ross. We've made it to 50. This has been a little bit of a wild ride here with, not starting without any experience and then coming to now. So we've covered a few different topics, a few different sports, football being the main topic here. But now we are on the 50th episode that just so happens to be recorded on March 20th. We are right in the thick of March Madness. Guys, we're at 94 subs on the YouTube. So if you haven't already and you're coming back to watch us again, hit the sub button right about somewhere here or on the other side where John Ross is sitting. Hit that sub button. It's free. That would mean a lot to us and do a lot for us as far as growing the pod goes. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all the good things. Keep doing it. Keep sharing. Keep spreading the word about High Street Sports. We would greatly appreciate it. But welcome back. We are here at March Madness. We are in the middle of the first four, so there's already been some action that's already happened. Action-packed conference tournament season. So a lot to talk about here. John Ross, what's going on, man? What are you looking forward to most about this great 3-week run we're about to go on?
Well, number one, I'm looking forward to the fact that Virginia isn't going to be in it.
They stink.
After
God,
last night. No, yeah, I'm really excited. It's one of the best times of the year. March Madness until your team loses and it turns into March Sadness. But regardless, we're here. We're here to talk about it. I'm excited. First four last night. Wagner beat Howard for the right to play number one seed Carolina. And as I mentioned, thank God Virginia lost 67-42 to Colorado State. Colorado State did the Lord's work and didn't let the Cavaliers in the tournament, so no one has to be subjected to watch that god-awful brand of basketball they play. But yeah, who are the games tonight?
Tonight would be Montana State, so the Bobs, and Grambling. And then on the other side, we also have Boise State and Colorado. So let's see here. Let me look. Montana State and Grambling winner plays Purdue. And then the Boise State Colorado winner plays Florida. So it's a 10-7 matchup and a 16-1 matchup in these next first four games. And we've already mentioned one of the number one seeds. Rounding out the other three are UConn in the East bracket, North Carolina in the West, and Houston in the Southern side of things. So out of the 4 ones here, like what do you think about the makeup of the regions? Any storylines to watch out for? I know there's a big one in the West region. But we can get to that one in just a little bit. But anything else catch your eye, when you look at the bracket just on its face before we get into the meat of the conversation?
No, I think Purdue definitely caught a break, in my opinion. I think maybe after last year losing to Fairleigh Dickinson in the first round, the committee maybe cut them a little bit of slack. I think Houston got the hardest bracket. They put 3 blue blood programs in there with them, Kentucky, Kansas, and Duke, albeit Kansas isn't at full strength. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And Duke kind of below there's still a chance they could go far in the tournament, but definitely below expectations of where they started the year off. And then Kentucky, who's been kind of hot and cold this year, but when they're hot, they're a very scary team to play. So I think Houston definitely got the toughest. And I think Carolina and UConn definitely got pretty hard brackets, but Houston definitely got, I don't want to say the shaft, but Houston definitely got the hardest out of the 4-1 seeds.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And as you mentioned, the blue bloods that are in there, a couple of conference tournament champions in there as well. And then, a team, I think, and we talked about it in the conference championship preview show, a team that I would look out for is, Florida. And Florida got hot, made a run to the SEC championship game. They did lose their star big man in the first, couple minutes of that game. Which is going to set Florida back just a little bit, but they have guard play that can go win them a game, and they've got a little bit of a deeper scoring threat than a lot of people would realize. So I think Florida would be a team to watch out for in that Southern bracket. But yes, I would agree with you. I think Houston definitely got the tough shake out of all 4 of the 1 seeds. So we can go on and get into these regions and kind of look at the matchups that we like in these regions and take a little bit of a deep dive into this bracket. So we'll start with the East region here. As we mentioned, UConn 31-5, or excuse me, 31-3. They win their American Championship conference tournament and did it by way of really just domination. They had a tough half against Marquette where the scoring was a little bit lower, but were able to pull away in that second half. Illinois goes into this tournament with a pretty impressive Big Ten tournament run. Had to come from behind to beat a pretty game Nebraska team in that Big Ten tournament final. Auburn, a team that made a run and won an SEC championship. So there's a lot going on here. We'll start with the number 1 UConn versus number 16 Stetson. Shouldn't be any trouble for UConn. Moving down to the 8-9 Florida Atlantic versus Northwestern. That could be a little bit of a surprise game. Northwestern was a surprise team in the Big Ten. Weird that the Big Ten this season was kind of flipped. Usually in football, the East is on top and the West kind of stinks, but it was actually completely reversed. The West half of the Big Ten was really good and the East stunk. So Northwestern was a little bit of a surprise there. Chris Collins seems to continue to work his magic there in Wildcat land. UAB and Auburn. UAB the 12, Auburn the 4, Yale the 13. Excuse me, San Diego State. I missed San Diego State there. So that's on me. San Diego State the 5, UAB the 12, BYU the 6. Duquesne makes an appearance in the tournament for the first time in God knows how long. So BYU and Duquesne the 6-3. Illinois, the 6-11. Illinois is the 3. Morehead State the 14 in that matchup. Moving down, the 7 seed Washington State Cougars face number 10 seed Drake, and then number 2 Iowa State versus number 15 South Dakota State. So looking at that East region, we mentioned a couple of teams that are conference tournament winners in that region as well. Some strong teams there. What do you think about Iowa State? I mean, a team that blew the doors off of Houston, which again, not used to seeing. But what do you think about Iowa State, and what do you think about that potential matchup with UConn down the road should things go, the way it looks like it might?
I definitely think the Cyclones look very good right now. I mean, you got to be pretty damn good to beat Houston the way they did, especially with how good Houston's defense is. Mm-hmm. But just looking through this bracket, couple intriguing matchups in the second round. You have the potential of UConn versus Florida Atlantic. I know Florida Atlantic started the year off very highly ranked, and they've been ranked here that season, but they've suffered a lot of losses. They shouldn't have suffered. They honestly should have ran through the American Conference, and they didn't. But something to be said for all 5 of their starters. I think pretty much maybe 4 of their 5 starters were on that national champion, that Final Four team last year. So something to be said for all that experience. So I wouldn't put it past them to go and run again. They would obviously have to get past UConn in the second round. So that's a matchup I'd be excited to watch. I'd also be excited to see UConn versus Auburn, see Janai Broome versus Donovan Clegane, big men down low. Iowa State, like we talked about, they're a really good team. They were in the conversation for that last 1 seed. Didn't really have a hard non-conference schedule. I think that's what did them in right there. But then just looking through Illinois, they won the Big Ten. Terrence Shannon Jr. is a baller. I think he either had 40 in the championship game or in the semifinal against Ohio State, but he had 40 in one of them. And just looking through as far as which teams could be this region's Cinderella, I look at Drake. Drake's been they were a team last year who was a popular upset pick as a 12 seed and lost in the first round to Miami, who did end up going to the Final Four. But Drake, I think they've been ranked a couple times throughout the year, and I do think they're gonna. I would pick them to win that first matchup against Washington State, and that would, if Iowa State won, that'd be another matchup I'd be excited to watch because both teams in Iowa, they haven't played each other since 2018. So you got to, and I think I saw somewhere where Drake has tried to like set up some kind of yearly home and home with them, and Iowa State won't do it. So you got to think there may be some kind of sour grapes from Drake there. So that's one of the teams in this region I could definitely see going on a Cinderella run.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier that UConn played in the American. I was completely wrong. They're out of the Big East. Do forgive me, but yeah, I think that second round matchup, as you mentioned, UConn and Florida Atlantic has a lot of potential there. UConn seems to be, and they seem to have been the best team all year long. and there's just a level of consistency that comes with what they do. They're well coached, and they've been there, obviously the defending national champion. So it'd be hard to look past Florida Atlantic in that one. But I think Florida Atlantic is going to have their hands full with Northwestern, as I mentioned. A team that was surprising in the Big Ten, and they play a bit of a physical brand of basketball, and they're not afraid to beat and bang and kind of get down in the dirty area and do their work there. And then again, like Auburn, a team that is coming off an SEC championship victory in that tournament, do they kind of fall asleep at the wheel, and could Yale kind of maybe pull a fast one on them in that 4-13 matchup? But I would think that Auburn would prevail, but it's March. Who knows? So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of intriguing matchups in the East, but UConn, I think the clear-cut best team in that region, but Iowa State would have something to say about that. They've played well lately, and like, as we mentioned, we both said we've never seen Kansas. Now, albeit Kansas is not the same Kansas that we're accustomed to seeing, but we've never seen Kansas get beat the way that Houston beat Kansas a couple weeks ago. And then, Houston comes out and just gets blown off the floor against Iowa State. So that was a shocker, and but good for Iowa State. And, they've got all the momentum going into this tournament, which is what it's about in March. So, yeah, any final thoughts before we move out of the East?
No, if I pick, I definitely don't think anybody's stopping UConn in that region. They're my pick to go to the Final Four from that region. I just think they're too deep, too experienced to not make it out of that one.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and pick UConn as well. I like what they see, but again, like I have a hard time looking at Iowa State and getting excited about the potential Elite Eight matchup there in that regional final in the East. But I'm gonna go ahead and pick UConn. But again, I would not be surprised if Iowa State had something to say about that, or Auburn. Really, I mean, I think Auburn matches up against UConn pretty well too, and that would be a Sweet 16 matchup there. That would be exciting. But obviously, they got to play the games first, and they got to make it there. But yeah, some intriguing matchups and really exciting basketball potential in that East region. We'll move down to the West region. Number 1 seed North Carolina, 27-7. A really good season for the Heels. A little bit of a disappointment, I think, in the ACC tournament against NC State. But I think that game, yeah, that was tough to watch. But I think, State wanted it more. They got it more, but they're a bigger fish to fry than an ACC tournament championship for the Heels. And they know that. Everybody knows that. Hubert knows that, or he should. So, I mean, I think, the Heels are in good shape going into the tournament, regardless of that loss. I think they'll bounce back from that. They face Wagner. As we mentioned, Wagner beating Howard in the first 4 last night, earning a chance to face the number 1 seed Heels. Moving down, the number 8 Mississippi State Bulldogs will face off against number 9 Michigan State. Michigan State, a team that's kind of, had a very, very subpar season compared to what the expectation was preseason. Highly ranked, highly talked about going into the year, but that season did not go the way that Sparty would like. Moving down to the number 5, St. Mary's versus number 12, Grand Canyon. I don't know anything about Grand Canyon, but I did see at the end of their tournament championship game that there was a bit of a breakaway dunk after with the late game. Dude got mad, threw the ball at him. It is what it is. It's gamesmanship, but that was electric. So I like Grand Canyon, even though I don't know a single thing about them. Moving down, number 4, Alabama versus number 13, Charleston. Alabama, again, a really solid year for Alabama. Moving down, number 6, Clemson versus number 11, New Mexico. Clemson, again, a pretty good team out of the ACC, had some pretty big wins in the regular season. Number 3, Baylor versus number 14, Colgate. Number 7, Dayton versus number 10, Nevada. And number 2, Arizona versus number 15, Long Beach State. So, few pretty good teams in that region. Anything that in particular that sticks out to you when you look at the West region?
I think the low-hanging fruit is the potential for a Carolina-Arizona Elite Eight game, the Caleb Love game. Caleb Love versus his old team, RJ Davis versus Caleb Love. I'd love to see it. I really would. I think that would be box office. And if anybody knows how to stop Caleb, it's his old team. They know what he likes to do, and if they can get him to shoot 20 times and go 6 for 20. But yeah, that's
All about the
obviously
Caleb Love experience.
That's obviously the low hanging fruit. Definitely intrigued by that. I think the 12-5 matchup here, you definitely have a potential for that common 12 seed upset. The other thing I do know about Grand Canyon is they score a lot. They have a very good offense. Yeah, so that's honestly, I would pick the Lopes to upset St. Mary's in this one.
Okay.
That's just a low-hanging fruit for the 12-5 matchup. Alabama, really good offense. They can score a lot of points. They do not play a shred of defense. There's been a lot of handful of teams put up 100 on them very easily this year. Looking through this too, a lot of really good players in this region. You got R.J. Davis and Armando Bacot from Carolina, obviously. Caleb Love from Arizona. You got Dayron Holmes from Dayton, averages about 20 points a game for the Flyers. Jacoby Walter for Baylor. P.J. Hall for Clemson. Mark Sears for Bama. So tons of good players here. I definitely, if there's one team in this region I think you're going to Cinderella run, it's New Mexico, who just won the Mountain West, a team a conference who a lot of people thought were going to get at least maybe 6 bids in this one. They didn't get that many, but they have Jalen House, son of Eddie House, and I think they beat San Diego State, Nevada, and I think Boise State. That was their run through the Mountain West to win that, all of them being tournament teams. So, yeah, I'd look for the Lobos. I'm actually picking them to upset Clemson in the first round because Clemson kind of picks and chooses when they want to play up to their ability this year. They do have really good players. Like I talked about P.J. Hall, Joe Girard back in that backcourt back there. But, yeah, I think the Lobos have the most potential in this region to go on a Cinderella run. Michigan State, you can never count Tom Izzo out in March, although he will have a tough first-round matchup against Mississippi State. Mississippi State, you and I both saw it, took Tennessee behind the woodshed in the SEC tournament, so definitely no slouch there in the Bulldogs. As far as we already talked about Carolina in Arizona is the matchup that out of all these I'd love to see. Obviously, Carolina and Michigan State, two historic programs going against each other. Some upset potential there, too, for the Heels. Like Michigan State did start the year very highly ranked. Obviously, the season didn't go how they wanted to, but everyone's 0-0 now, so you never know what could happen. But, yeah, as far as I think obviously being a homer here, but I don't care. I like the Heels to come out of this region. R.J. Davis and Mondo, they both played on that team that went to the national championship game a few years ago in 2022. It's 100% Mondo's last ride. Possibly RJ's last ride as well. You got to think they want to go out on a good note, get to a Final Four, potentially play for a national championship. They've got that experience with Cormac Ryan and Harrison Ingram. Both of those two are the key to Carolina going far in this. They have to play better than they did in the ACC championship against NC State. Elliot Cadeau, the freshman point guard, he's got to do what. He's got to distribute the ball and attack the basket. That's when Carolina's been successful all year long. When he's playing downhill, getting to the basket, dishing to open guys, that's when Carolina's at their best. But yeah, I do think the Arizona-Carolina matchup is going to happen. They put Arizona in this region for a reason. I just think the stars are going to align for that Caleb Love game, but I like the Heels to make it to the Final Four in a rematch from earlier in the season against UConn.
Yeah, and I think Carolina obviously has, things that they can take away from the state game and the ACC championship game that they can build on and work on. And as you mentioned, there's a lot of experience that's in that team from their championship game run a couple of years ago. Hubert has been there, coached in that game. And as you mentioned, RJ and Mondo have played in that game as well. So that bodes well for Carolina. I don't think, however, I think you mentioned that Michigan State had a upset potential there to beat Mississippi State. I don't think so. I think Mississippi State really showed against Tennessee in that game that they're for real. They can score, they can defend, they can muck it up, they can rebound. So that would be an interesting game. I think that would be a really, really fun matchup to watch between the Heels and Mississippi State. I like like I said, I don't know anything about them, but I love Grand Canyon. So I wouldn't hate
Lopes.
seeing that one as well. Electric Gym. I've seen some of their games in the past, televised on ESPN, and they have an electric gym there. So love Grand Canyon. Good colors, purple and white. Alabama, again, a team that can be fun and electric on the offensive end, but as you mentioned, does not play a lick of defense. So they're a little bit of an anomaly as well. And Baylor, I think, is a team too that you can't really count out in this region. They could be a team that could potentially knock off Arizona and kind of spoil that Caleb Love Super Bowl. But yeah, I mean, I think you look at who the best team is in this region, top to bottom, and I think it's North Carolina. And I think when North Carolina puts it all together, when they play that quick up and down style of basketball that Carolina you're accustomed to seeing with Carolina, and defend and rebound and do the little things well, I think Carolina is the best team in this region by far. So I'm gonna take Carolina with you as well. And I know people watching are thinking, oh, they're just gonna agree on everything as they always do, but not so fast. Not so fast. But I am going to agree with you here and go with Carolina. I think the Heels will take that little smack in the mouth against NC State and, put that towards momentum into making this last, month of the season really count and accomplish their big goal that they set out to at the beginning of the year. So the West could be fun. The East could be fun. I mean, both of those regions have a lot of potential, a lot of good players, as you mentioned, in the West, and a lot of good players in the East as well. So that is that side of the bracket. We'll move on to the South region. As I mentioned, number 1 seed in that region, the Houston Cougars, 30-4 on the season. So a very successful season again for Houston. They face the number 16 seed Longwood. Moving down to the 8-9 matchup, you have Nebraska and Texas A&M. As I mentioned before, Nebraska, a team that kind of came out of the middle of nowhere. I know when I watched Ohio State play Nebraska earlier this season, their big guy, the big white center, hit probably 6 or 7 threes in that game, gobbled up a whole bunch of rebounds, and kind of dominated the way that game was played. So Nebraska has, an electric potential in that matchup. Moving down to the 5-12, you have Wisconsin going up against James Madison. James Madison comes into this tournament at 31-3. So there's, obviously they have a lot of firepower there. They could be a team that could upset Wisconsin. And in fact, I think I'm going to pick that one as well. Moving down to the 4-13, you have Duke against Vermont. Duke is a team, again, that we talked about, just not really playing to the expectation that they had coming into the season. Filipowski is just about the long and short of what they have on offense. McCain can score the ball, but it's been underwhelming in terms of the expectation that they had with their offseason banner that they hung. Moving down to the 6-11, you have Texas Tech versus NC State. Again, everybody knows what happened with NC State. We just talked about it. Texas Tech comes in looking to spoil that party, which I think they will. Moving down to the number 3 and 14, that is Kentucky versus Oakland. Moving down to the 7-10, Florida versus the winner of Boise State and Colorado. And then the 2-15, Marquette and Western Kentucky. So, again, we'll just, follow script here. What jumps off at you when you look at the South region in terms of upset potential and fun matchups?
2 matchups jump off the page immediately, and oh wait, sorry, I'm in the wrong. Well, one matchup in particular, James Madison, 31-3. I get people point at their schedule, but they beat Michigan State first game of the year at Michigan State when they were ranked number 4. And mediocre teams don't win 31 games. That's a lot of games to win. Mm-hmm. Only lose 3. So I like that. I'm picking the Dukes to upset the Badgers in the first round. Vermont, I think that there is some potential there. Obviously, I would love to see Vermont beat Duke in the first round, but I don't think that's going to happen. NC State, obviously is a very popular upset pick against Texas Tech. NC State's got a lot of momentum with them right now after winning 5 games in 5 days to win the ACC. I think that was just – I'd call this hate if you want to. It's exactly what it is. I think they're spent. I think they had their Super Bowl. Everything else from here on out is just gravy for them, and I don't see them winning the first round. I like Texas Tech in that one. But yeah, like we talked about, you got, and I was wrong earlier when I said Kansas was in this region. I apologize for that, but you do have Kentucky and Duke, 2 historic blue blood programs in here. There is potential there for a Elite Eight matchup between them 2 as well. So that's something exciting. Marquette, they get Tyler Kolek back. Be interested to see how far they can go because they have proven they're a very, very good team when they're playing up to their full potential. Was Tyler Kolek like hurt, or was that like I don't know what to believe.
I'm not really sure what to make of that situation. I hope he was hurt because I think that's what they were leading on.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure.
I got you.
But the addition of Tyler Kolek back into that lineup adds a completely different dynamic to Marquette.
Yeah. But Houston, obviously, the 1 seed in this one, see if they're motivated after losing in very convincing fashion to Iowa State in the Big 12 championship like we talked about. They play a really, really hard-nosed brand of defense. They got 30 wins. That's not easy to do, especially in the conference they were in. But as far as like I said at the beginning, this is probably the toughest bracket, top to bottom. I like James Madison, man. I like the Dukes. They can score a lot of points. They're really good on offense. I like them to make it to the Sweet 16, especially if that would mean beating Duke in the second round. But as far as my Final Four pick in this one, I like Kentucky to make it out of this one. That's me banking on the good version of Kentucky showing up and not the ones where their youth gets the best of them. Reed Shepherd is
a bucket.
He's played his way into top 5. I know this year's NBA draft class is down, but he's definitely, in my opinion, going to be a top 5 pick, and he comes off the bench for them. Robert Dillingham. There's some intrigue there, too, if Kentucky and NC State play in the second round, because Robert Dillingham, I don't know if he remembers, was originally committed to NC State and then decommitted and went to Kentucky. So definitely some intrigue there. But yeah, just Aaron Bradshaw too, Antonio Reeves, all those guys in Kentucky. If Kentucky's playing up to their potential, they're very, very difficult to beat. They can score a lot of points. If they're motivated on the defensive end, that's just another nightmare for whatever team they're playing. So I like Kentucky to make it out of the South region and get to the Final Four.
So after a lot of thought, I've thought about this. I love James Madison, like you said, in that matchup against Wisconsin. Wisconsin does have potential to explode on offense. Their weakness is the defensive end of the floor. So if they're not able to get timely stops and score the basketball when they need to against James Madison, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. And then, I agree with you there. I think Texas Tech takes care of NC State. Kentucky, as you mentioned, it kind of depends on which form of Kentucky you get. Houston, we've seen all year long, has been largely dominant outside of their blowout loss against Iowa State. But the team that really intrigues me the most in this bracket is Marquette. And the addition of Tyler Kolek back into that lineup, he's a lethal shooter, and he does a lot more than I think people realize for Marquette. They were locked into a close first half against
just like 6 or 7 assists a game.
Yeah, they were locked into a close game against UConn. In the second half, UConn's guns kind of pulled away and did what they do and put that game against Marquette away. But that's a team that can go out there and seriously contend, I think, for a national championship. So I'm going to pick Marquette to come out of the South. I really like Marquette. Shaka Smart is a great coach. I think, when he's wearing the long sleeves under the polo, you never know what you're going to get. It's a fire fit. He's always got some good shoes. So let's take my man Shaka. I'm going with Marquette. I'm riding Marquette to the Final Four here.
All right. We differed. There you have it, viewers.
We did.
We're probably going to differ again.
And we are. I already know we are. So that was the South. Any final thoughts on the South?
No, this one should be a fun region to watch. we're probably wrong in all our picks. It's probably just going to be bloody after the first and second round with upsets. But hey, that's what we love about March Madness.
It's March, baby. We didn't tell you idiots to bet on anything that we say. So,
but hey, if you didn't know, betting is legal in North Carolina now. Online sports betting.
If you hadn't had any of the number of celebrities or athletes screaming at you on every commercial, every targeted ad for all men in the demographic of 21 to 35, now you know that sports betting is legal in North Carolina. If you need a referral, please come to me. I would gladly take the bonus that comes with that. Anyways, moving on to the Midwest. Number 1 seed Purdue faces the winner of the Bobs of Montana State and Grambling. Purdue, obviously, as you mentioned earlier, no, what's the word I'm looking for? Stranger to the upset in the NCAA tournament. Utah State is the 8 seed, TCU the 9 in that 8-9 matchup. Down to the 5-12, Gonzaga versus McNeese. Gonzaga, not a the same year that they've been accustomed to having in the last probably 10 years or so. Not really the same high-powered Gonzaga team as we're used to seeing. The 4-13, Kansas and Samford. Samford went on an absolute tear in the Southern Conference this year. I love Samford against Kansas, especially a shorthanded Kansas. I think that is a really intriguing 4-13 matchup. And I think if there were going to be any of the 13s that pull off the upset, I think Samford probably has your best bet. They can score, they defend, they're up and down, they're fast paced. Like I said, they're 29-5. They absolutely ran through the Southern Conference. And usually, there's a lot of good teams. Chattanooga, East Tennessee State, UNCG, Wofford, usually a good team out of the Southern Conference. So, I think Samford's a high-powered team that could make some noise. The 6-11, South Carolina versus Oregon. That could be a really fun one. South Carolina is a team that is 26-7 going into this tournament. Michi Johnson is a guard that can shoot from anywhere on the floor and get to the basket. So they're well coached. It's a good team, and Oregon's a good team as well. The 3-14, Creighton versus Akron. Akron, the MAC champions. They play an exciting brand of basketball. Go Zips. And Creighton, obviously a mainstay in the tournament as well. The 7-10, Texas versus Colorado State, and the 2-15, Tennessee Volunteers versus St. Peter's. So immediately looking at the Midwest bracket, I think that, and I'll go ahead and make that that proclamation here. I think Samford beats Kansas. I can't look at that one and know that Kansas is shorthanded the way they are. I think that jumps off the page to me. What say you?
Oh, yeah, this bracket is the 11, 12, and 13 seeds are winning in this bracket. This is going to be the most upset-laden bracket. Oregon is riding hot right now after winning the Pac-12. They have an absolute monster down low in N'Faly Dante. He's healthy now, and that's really good news for the Ducks. South Carolina is a good team. Lamont Paris is a great coach, but I think Oregon's going to I think the Ducks are going to upset the Cox in the first round. And then Samford, I was already leaning toward picking them, even if Kevin McCullough played. He is now out for the entire tournament. We don't know how healthy Hunter Dickinson's going to be. So I'm picking Samford as well. I found the stat, Samford takes 25 threes a game and makes them at a 39% clip. That'll get it done. And they also force about 16 turnovers a game. So they're fun. They're going to be fun to watch no matter what. And I think they're going to upset one of the historic blue blood programs in college basketball in Kansas in the first round, setting up a matchup in the second round with number 12 seed McNeese State. Former LSU coach Will Wade is now at McNeese, and he has them at 30-3 in the first season. I don't care who you play against. 30 wins is hard in the regular season. I get McNeese State did play teams like Champion Christian, College of Biblical Studies, and Mississippi. What is this one? Mississippi University for Women. Don't know why they have a men's basketball team, but hey, So, yeah, I like McNeese State and Sanford for a 12-13 matchup for the right to go to the Sweet 16 in the second round. TCU, I mean, I know it's not really an upset 8-9 matchup, but I like TCU to beat Utah State in that in that first round matchup. Purdue, we'll see if they get fairly dicked again this year. They did last year. If no one follows me on Instagram, I found something last night. Do with this what you will. Do with this what you will. Hold on. Give me 1 second. So, where'd it go? Oh, wait, this goes, but never mind. This so go backtracking to the last bracket. Houston plays Longwood in the first round. In every tournament since 2021, a top 2 seed has lost in the first round to a team with a phallic, euphemistic name. 2021, number 2 seed Ohio State. Sorry, Chris, lost to number 15 seed Oral Roberts. 2022. St. Peter's 15 seed beat number 2 seed Kansas. We all remember the Peacocks run to the Elite Eight.
Mm-hmm.
And then last year, like I've hinted at a bunch of times, number 1 seed Purdue lost to 16 seed Fairleigh Dickinson. So that's 3 years in a row. Does Houston lose to Longwood in the first match? Will they be the next dictum?
Tune in and find out.
Yeah,
that doesn't matter. It's funny.
Lancers by 1 million.
Yes.
Lancers by 69.
Nice.
But yeah, back to this region. Like I said, I think this is going to be the most upset laden one. I got McNeese, Sanford, and Oregon winning. Creighton is a team when they're on. I could see them making a run to the final four, but they only go really 6 deep, I think, and that's not what you want in a tournament like this. And they don't really play much defense either. I think they're away at home. They're really good. Away from Omaha, Nebraska, not so much. So, and then Tennessee, a Tennessee team that's been very highly ranked all year, got blown out in the SEC tournament against Mississippi State, like we said. One of the best players in the country, Dalton Connect, on their team. Sometimes it seems like he has to do it all, and teams just honing on him, and also especially if he's not very good at defense. So, I mean, if the other team's scoring at will, I've seen Rick Barnes take him out because he's a liability over there, and and sometimes they have to stop the bleeding. So it's going to take guys like Zakai Ziegler, Josiah Jordan-James stepping up on the offensive end and giving Connect some help. But as far as this region, I think Purdue definitely did, like I said, got the easiest shake, especially given last year being the second team of all time to lose to a 16 seed. But I like Tennessee to make it out of this one. I'm not very confident in that pick because Tennessee just losing to Mississippi State kind of scared me. It seems like if Connect's not playing well, then there's really no hope for them. But big-time players come alive in this time of year, and I think Connect's going to go on an absolute tear to the Final Four for a rematch for the trilogy with Kentucky in the Final Four for a chance to play for a natty.
So, I hear your Tennessee. I like your points. I like what you're doing here, brother. However, there's something about this that intrigues me. And you mentioned TCU, and you mentioned that 9-8 matchup with Utah State. And I'm sitting here looking at Utah State, and I like Utah State. And I don't know why I like Utah State, but I do.
The Aggies?
And I think they beat TCU. And then we talked about Purdue. And let's talk about Purdue. Let's talk about Mr. Zach Edey. Okay? I've heard a saying that said, if you were good enough, you'd be there by now. And in terms of Zach Edey, if he was good enough, he'd probably be in the league by now. Just my thought. Let's look at the history of Big Ten bigs in terms of Zach Edey. Okay, there's one Luka Garza.
Chappy stats coming at us.
I don't know if I have numbers, but I have real life happenings here. Let's look at Luka Garza. Luka Garza was touted as all everything, the best player that God has ever put in a basketball uniform, and tore through the Big Ten, and Iowa won a Big Ten championship and made it into the tournament. And guess what happened? They didn't make it to the Final Four. Let's look at Purdue. They've already lost to a 16 seed once. They got dicked. And
fairly dicked.
In my opinion, once you make it into the Big Ten tournament, you don't get to be protected by Big Ten officiating anymore, Zach Edey. You're going to have to play big boy basketball at some point. And in this situation, there is no second chance. So, I mentioned I like Utah State. I don't know why, but I like Utah State a lot. I think Utah State beats TCU, and I think they beat Purdue. And I think Utah State rides that boiler train all the way to the Final Four.
All right.
Give me the 8 seed Utah State Aggies to make it to the Final Four after they beat Purdue.
They have been
on
ranked
that train
for
and
a good bit of time.
toot it all the way to the Final Four. Utah
All right.
State, book it.
I like
Midwest Region champions.
All right. So that would give us UConn, Carolina for me, and Kentucky, Tennessee. And you would have UConn, Carolina versus Marquette and Utah State.
I would. The
All
ratings on that other game, that Marquette-Utah State game, might stink. And I think Marquette makes it to the national championship. But I'm sticking by that. Utah State to the Final Four, baby.
Well, all right, I like it.
Mind you, I have nothing to back that up, but I love it. And I'm going to stand by it.
I like it.
Because that's what we do here.
Hey, they don't ask how. They
don't.
ask how many.
Zach
In this
Edey,
case, yeah.
have fun in the G League with Luka Garza. Because that's where you're headed.
Well, on to the Final Four. We'd have a rematch from early December, UConn versus Carolina. I'm biased. I don't care. Carolina, give me the Heels. Armando Bacot and RJ Davis in their last, possibly RJ's 100% Armando's, playing for a natty in their last year, avenging 2022, slaying the Dragon in UConn, beating the best on paper and honestly throughout the season, the best team in college basketball. Give me the Heels slaying that Dragon, and then give me Kentucky beating Tennessee for a North Carolina-Kentucky national championship game. It's 100% not going to happen. I know that right now. Just saying.
You don't know that. You
You're
don't
right, I
know
don't.
that. Because you want to know why? In March, we get to do this thing that every sports fan loves to do, and that's use our imagination.
That we do.
And this is where we're at. This is March. This is the bracket. It's in front of us. We have pens or pencils, depending on if you're a scumbag. But use a pen, fill out that damn bracket, and make your national championship game. Stand by it. I love it. Go Heels.
All right. But then, so Carolina played UConn on December 5th, Tuesday, December 5th at Madison Square Garden. They lost by about 11, I think. 10 days later, on the 15th, they played Kentucky in Atlanta. They lost. Give me the Heels avenging those back-to-back losses in December, beating UConn and then beating Kentucky in the national championship game, and Hubert Davis getting his first national championship as head coach of North Carolina. Number 8 banner. I count that 1924 one. And then Hubert Davis getting a championship in his first 3 years as the head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels, and Armando Bacot going out on top.
I love it. I love it. I love it. In the exciting rematch, UConn and North Carolina, I will go with you. I think this Carolina team is different when they play, and like I said,
elite
do all
team
the little
with
things
a blue-collar
correct.
attitude, per Jay Billis. That describes it perfectly.
Like you look at the games against Duke, the way they played those games, the way they dominated the second game for the most part in Cameron, and you look at some of the other games that Carolina's played. Obviously, you can look at the losses and pick apart Carolina for what they don't do well and what can happen when they don't do the little things. But I think, in March in the tournament, with Hubert's coaching experience and the game against Kansas and the way that went and things that, I think circumstances matter and what happened in the past and what they can learn from matters and the experience that's there with Mondo and RJ. And I think when RJ is playing at the top of his game, and
RJ is going to have at least 130 ball.
Affecting the game in multiple levels, the way that he can. I told you this before. I think he's the Naismith Player of the Year. To hell with Zach Edey. I think RJ Davis is the best player in the country, and when he is on, it's hard to stop Carolina. So give me Carolina to win that rematch with UConn.
And one more about Carolina. The bench is starting to play well at the perfect time of year. Seth Trimble, Jalen Withers, and Jalen Washington are getting – Trimble's obviously getting more than 10 minutes off the bench, but Withers and Washington are getting around 8 to 10 minutes at the bench, but they're making the most of their time out there and giving the starting guys a breather when they need it and making the most of their time out there and contributing to the team's success.
But for the love of God, Paxton Wojcik, take the long sleeves off if you're going to wear tights too. It looks weird. You're just, especially with the white jerseys, man, it washes you out. It's not a good look. Anyways, on to the other side. I think meeting North Carolina in the national championship game will be Marquette. I think Marquette adding Tyler Kolek back is huge. And I think, if he stays on the floor, if he is hurt, if he's not hurt, whatever the case is, if Tyler Kolek is on the floor, Marquette is a very, very dangerous team. This version of Marquette kind of embodies what you've seen out of Shaka Smart at all of his stops. They play a very distinct brand of basketball.
Havoc defense.
Yes, the Havoc defense. Wichita State knocked Ohio State out of the tournament with that. So I mean, they're a very good team, and Tyler Kolek is an elite shooter. So I think the prospect of a Tyler Kolek and RJ Davis national championship matchup would be absolutely incredible TV. It would cap off what would be, as always, an exciting NCAA tournament. And I think, I am going to ride with you on the championship pick. I think Carolina is and has been one of the best teams in the country all year long. Tournament time is when it matters. March is when it matters. They are going for their 8th national championship. So, this
all depends, like I said, on Cormac Ryan and Harrison Ingram. If they're hitting their threes, playing defense like they have all year, Carolina is very, very hard to beat.
You give me that team that showed up in Cameron in Durham, North Carolina, and played the Duke the second go around. I think that team beats anybody in the country. So I'm going to pick
beat Tennessee on its home floor. In Chapel Hill at the end of November.
Yeah, so I'm going to pick Carolina in this one. But again, I think it'll be a close game. I like Marquette a lot. So should we see that national championship game, I'm taking the Heels. But I think it'll be exciting. I think this tournament's going to be exciting. There's a lot of upset potential on different parts of this bracket. It could be, and I think it is one of the best times of year, man. This is going to be a fun 3 weeks to figure out who is going to come out of this, or 4 weeks, or 3 weeks.
It's 3 weeks.
Anyways, it's going to be a fun month or so to figure out who comes out on top as the kings of college basketball once again. This is
12:45.
Starts tomorrow at 12:45 and ends in Phoenix, Arizona. So
at 9:08 at night. Or whatever weird time they make the start.
It'll be a Monday and it'll be a late one. But Mondays aren't so bad when you end it with a national championship game. So should be a lot of fun, man. This has been a fun couple of episodes here talking about college basketball. We will be back talking about playoff hockey as it develops, talking about NFL draft, all kinds of off-season college football talk. So,
and whoever wins the national championship would need 6 wins to do so. High Street Sports needs 6 subscribers to get to 100. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button and get us there.
Like I said, it's free. It's right underneath John Ross's Rowback logo, I think, right under there. So just press the button, man. It's big. It says subscribe. Just
right here. Right
Yeah,
there.
right on his
Right
right on his nipple. Just press the button. It's free. You'll see everything that comes out of High Street Sports. I hope you enjoy everything that comes out of High Street Sports. And if you don't, subscribe anyways and just never look at us. That's cool too. I don't mind. But anyways, we appreciate you guys coming back. This was the March Madness preview. Everybody loves filling out the bracket, and everybody loves burning them after day one. It's a tradition like no other. So get you some cold beer, get you some good food, grab your buddies, watch some good basketball. John Ross, any final thoughts before we get out of here?
March Madness, it's here. I love it. Basketball, sports.
Go Bucks, win the NIT. Congrats, Jake Diebler.
Oh, yeah.
We love you guys. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks for coming.